him having those bodies of reliable players, and injuries happen, things happen. Even if you said, "Hey, we're just gonna focus on either one of you guys being special teams," if let Rashard start a fresh slate and say, "Hey, we're gonna utilize you more on punt returns, kick returns, and just more as a back out of the backfield catching." However you flip it. Like I said, John Gruden he's got the mind that the Raiders need to try to exploit the new age NFL and find discrepancies in the defenses that he's going against. You want to give him as much talent as possible. So I'm keeping both of
Yeah.
those
The
guys.
other thing I was thinking
What
that.
about
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. Carry on.
No, I was just gonna say, what
No,
if
go
we
on, go on. You
what
go
if we
first.
draft the running back, say round 3, Sony Michel maybe. Then you have 4 running backs in the roster. Does he go with 4 running backs in the roster, or does he then say, "Well, I don't
Yes.
want"? Really?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, did you see Reggie McKenzie
Because
wearing a Beast Mode T-shirt at the combine?
yeah, yeah,
I just
did.
noticed that
Like I
was
said, I think you go with 4 because those Raiders teams in the past, you got to look at it, man. They had guys that had specific uses, and then you throw in the fullback in John Ritchie, which you have even more athletic guy in Jameis Olawale when he's healthy. You got a dynamic core here. I'd carry the 4. I would carry the 4. I would carry the 4 because you can utilize them in so many different ways. I'm carrying the 4. I
okay.
want to give
Okay.
Derek Carr as many options as possible.
Another position that I really wanted to talk to you about was the wide receiver position. Obviously, Cooper had a really successful season a couple of years ago. Well, he's had a good couple of seasons, but last year he kind of fell off the rails. Some people say it was injury, but last year he predominantly played in the slot. And his numbers were fantastic in the slot, but that's not really where you want this guy to line up. You want him to line up on the outside, just tormenting safeties and corners. Who on this in the NFL Combine would you say the Raiders should look at to fill the slot position going forward? And in what round could you see that coming together?
There are a couple guys, but if I'm talking about slot, right now, the first guy that's coming to my mind is Braxton Berrios out of Miami. He's already polished. He's the equivalent to he's comparable to Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, all of those guys. He's got it. That's who I want right now. I don't think he's the fastest. I think, but he knows how to get open. He's a very crisp route runner. He knows how to score.
Clever.
I think he had the second most, if I'm correct. I think he had the second most slot touchdowns out of any FBS receiver. He's solid. And in which round I take him? If he falls to the 6th round, I'm using my very first comp pick on him, but I pick him as high as 4. I think that, like you said, if I had a guy that I can I wouldn't primarily. There's nobody in this draft that I would primarily put on the outside to put Cooper in the slot. No one at all. The only way I would do that permanently is if you got a guy like Allen Robinson who's 100% healthy, or somebody like that to pair on the outside with Michael Crabtree.
What
And
about
even still,
DJ Chark? He's another one who had a really good combine.
I've come around to him in the last few weeks, especially with this combine. I like him a lot, but I'm just going off preference. I'm taking Berrios all day because I know that he has the reliable hands. I like Sharp, but I know that he has the reliable
value
hands.
as well. Chark's going to go obviously within the first 1 to 3 rounds, probably. The 2nd or 3rd round. In terms of value, Berrios in round 6 or just before that.
Yeah,
It could be better value for us as an organisation. It probably work better because obviously you can tie up other loose ends. There's another interesting name on there who has had a lot of problems, but had a really good combine in Antonio Callaway.
yeah,
He had a good combine.
he had a Yeah, he hasn't. He didn't play at all last year. Uh, personally, I'm really maybe I'm biased, but I'm not really a fan of Florida wide receivers. But I will say that he really showed out, especially like we said, having a year off. He showed out. He's going to be a great value late in the draft. Because of his issues, he's going to go late. Um, I haven't been really a fan of Florida wide receivers in the past, but you can't really hold everybody to the same metric. I liked what I've seen from him this weekend a lot. So I wouldn't have I wouldn't have a problem with him going in the 6 or 7 to the Raiders. But like you said, Shark, Braxton Berrios, a guy like Michael Gallup, they're DJ
Sorry,
Moore.
There's a couple of other names that have shown out at the combine as well. I mean, this one really flies under the radar. He's a bit bigger. He's a different type of player, but Jester Weyer of Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
he's another one. He's very big. He's quite athletic for his size as well.
Yes. Yeah, I like Way as well. He didn't really have a quarterback, and from a school like Pitt, when you don't have a quarterback, it's hard to get the props that you deserve. I do like Justin Wade because he has that versatility to be inside and out. Like you said, for his size, that's a tremendous thing. But another guy that didn't really get a chance to show his skills at the combine, where everything is contingent on his health, is Anthony Miller from Memphis. I think that if he gets a clean bill of health and says, "Hey, this guy is going to be all right in the future," he's going to shoot back up. And once his pro day comes up, we're gonna see if he's reinserted to the second round or where he's gonna where he's projected.
Is he a punt or a kick returner as well? So
he's everything. He's everything.
He can add that extra to your game. I mean, like, I love Patterson, but if you can save money and bring a young guy like that in and groom him into a playmaker who on all sort of fronts, then that's. If you're carrying 4 backs, Patterson probably would have been the 4th back, because he's kind of a dual. He does dual roles, but you can't really have 5 backs. So he's really kind of like a punt or a kick return specialist. You'd probably want to bring someone in from the draft to fulfill those roles instead of paying a guy 3 or 4 million just for doing punt and kick returns. It's all money, and obviously trying to get the roster together without breaking the bank, but obviously also addressing everywhere.
Yeah. The biggest determinant factor is going to be seeing how Khalil Mack's camp feels about whatever the offer was that he got from the Raiders. That's going to set precedent for here on out. The Reggie McKenzie, the Raiders had the advantage of having one of the best numbers guys in the league. I think that he's really good at determining how to get guys in on good deals. Now, the issue with McKenzie has been the guys that he's re-signed. As a perfect example with Seth Roberts, who had 1 touchdown this year. But I think that with this situation, we got to look at 2012, man. I tell people, from 2012 to 2013, he got rid of so much bad cap. And he really gave the Raiders a fighting chance in terms of signing players and from, getting them out of the red, getting them out of the negative. That team, when he inherited, that team was so in the hole, it was ridiculous. He really corrected the late out. God bless the dead. God rest his soul. But he really corrected a lot of the financial errors that burden that Al Davis placed upon the team.
Yeah.
Obviously,
we know you've got to shoot off soon. We know you've got to shoot off soon because you've got to get back to the combine. But just briefly, obviously, I read some news at you earlier, and you wanted to touch on obviously the Tremaine Johnson story briefly. Yeah.
Tremaine Johnson, with David Emerson gone, Gary and Conley being the only sure thing you got, Sean Smith, we don't know what's going to happen with him with his case. I think that he's in Gunther's system. If you solidify that line, Sean Smith would be all right. But if
Not
you know,
for.
if he's
Do you
gone,
think
you
he
got to
comes back
have
for eight
some type
million
of
though?
depth.
Even if he comes back,
Yeah, yeah. You need to have obviously you need to have backups. You need to have starting players from day one. I mean, if the money's right, it's a no-brainer because obviously he
Mm,
brings that veteran leadership into the team that we don't have at the moment, apart from TJ Carey. But even that, we don't know what's going on with that yet.
yeah,
And obviously, if we bring Tremaine Johnson in, we can focus on corner later on in the draft as well. So it means that you can really kind of narrow it down in terms of who you're going to pick in each round.
yeah.
yeah,
It kind of helps you understand where you want to be in the draft and what you want to do in terms of talent. You know,
I think
sometimes
it's
you go best player available, but
mhm.
sometimes you have to look outside of that and think, right, we need this. We have to get this regardless of whoever is the best player on the board. We need to get this to help our team improve.
Right. I think with the Tremaine situation is you got to look at it the same way you would look at the linebacker position. We first of all, like you said, with depth, we've seen what happened when you got Dexter McDonald and Antonio Hamilton on the field. It's not nice, you know. And we don't you know, especially at the cornerback position in the division that you're in, even with the uncertainty of the AFC West at quarterback. You don't want to, you know, with the Raiders schedule coming up, the last thing you want to do is have your most experienced player at cornerback be Dexter McDonald or Gary and Conley, who played a game and a half, really. Tremaine Johnson, there's a lot of things to sell him on. First of all, you bring him into Oakland, he'd be staying in state. He wouldn't have to move. He'd be just, you know, he'd be in the Oakland area instead of LA now. He's a solid player. I mean, he's worth the money, and he's coming from a competitive team in the Rams who made the playoffs last year. He was a key anchor on that team, turning it around on that defense. You put him in that defense, and if you say, you put him and Conley on the outside, or you put Conley in a slot and bring somebody else, and you got one guy that you can rely on. TJ Carey, I personally don't think he'll be back outside of showing his abilities inside and outside that corner. He's a very reliable punt returner, so I don't anticipate him being back. I say, hey, listen, I know he said that he wants to come back, but if the money is there, you got to make as much as you can in this league, because it's not like basketball or baseball. Longevity is not guaranteed in
Yeah,
football. You got to make your money while you can. I mean, the fans understand. Listen, if they don't understand, they don't understand business. Nobody's going to take a pay. Nobody's going to stay at 40,000 when you can get a better job at $55,000-$60,000 a year. If I'm TJ Carey, this is my opportunity. I'm gonna take the money and go. And
yeah,
he's still young. But Tremaine Johnson, when you got a situation with Gary and Conley, who's coming off an injury, we aren't 100% sure of his injury status because it was so cloudy. I want somebody that I can rely on, and that's Tremaine Johnson. So I don't,
yeah,
if you're going to spend the money, I'm gonna spend the money on him.
but
yeah,
is he
yeah.
worth the
No,
money
that sounds
that he's
like a good
probably
plan
going to
for me.
ask? He was. What do you think? Is 15 million? He might be asking. It sounds like. Is he worth that much? I mean, he graded out. I don't know how seriously you take PFF, but he graded out above average, not that great. But you can have someone like Kyle Fuller for much less. Or I'm just playing devil's advocate. Or you can have Aaron Colvin from the Jaguars for much less. Or do you give premium money to Tremaine Johnson? Is he that much better than the other guys?
I think I'd take all three of the guys that you said, but I think he's a notch better than both.
Mm-hmm.
Fuller is really young. I like Fuller a lot. Now, would the Bears, part ways with him when they're in a rebuilding stage? I don't know,
Right.
but I like all three. I think Colvin had if I'm correct, he gave up one touchdown last season. He's solid. He's coming from a solid defense. I think Tremaine Johnson is going to be all right. I think I would give him the money because, like I said, man, if you
Yeah.
can get any of those three guys, that's fine. But he's a notch above those two, and I want to have some veteran presence. I want to have a playoff tested vet that's still a little young. You can't take this money with you when you did. I'm gonna
Right.
spend it on somebody that has potential and that can be a